This time we're going to look at audience analysis from the perspective of data collection. I'll give you an overview of a variety of the ways in which data are collected, as well as focus on two that are important. One for television, the LPM, and one for radio, the PPM. So let's look at the range. First, people meters. Television is the local people meter, and for radio primarily it's the portable people meter. I'll give you some more detail about those in just a moment. One of the ways in which they used to collect data is through diaries. Diaries were booklets that were sent out to people all around the United States, and what they had to do was write down by hand what it is they watched or listened to over the course of a week. When they sent it back, they would get some money, and the information will be stored and processed and sent to all the clients. This is an approach that's now being phased out pretty much and being replaced with a technical approach called code readers. We won't go into detail about that right now. There's also a couple of telephone approaches. The coincidental telephone is when they call you up and talk to you about your media use at that time. So they can get an idea of what you're watching, what you're listening to, and your attitudes toward those programs. We can also get the telephone recall approach, which is particularly valuable to advertisers. Why? Well, through a people meter they can know that you possibly watched a commercial, but with a telephone recall survey, it's possible for them to get a sense for whether their commercials actually made an impression on you. And so that's really valuable for the folks in advertising. Focus groups and surveys are two other approaches that are done. Surveys more common than the focus groups, and surveys could cover a variety of topics and primarily are being done through the internet these days. So let's look at these people meters in particular and see how they work. Now, the local people meter is something that goes into the Nielsen households. So it's one of the houses that has been randomly selected in order to be participating in the Nielsen surveys. To do that, what they do is they come out to the house and they put these boxes on all of the television sets, and they set it up so that whatever other viewing approaches you might use are also going to be accounted for in the survey viewing. So if you have a tablet or something like that that you're watching your programming from, it will capture that information as well. The key thing is it's identifying you with the programming that you are watching, and it can account for a variety of people, up to 8 different people within a household. And just all it requires you to do is make sure you acknowledge that you are the one who is watching or listening in this particular case, because it could be that you might be watching a cable radio station or something like that. So that's the approach that is taken, and we'll talk a little bit about the process of getting that information to Nielsen in just a moment. Let's jump over to the portable people meter for radio. The portable people meter operates in a similar way, but instead of having a box, it's something we wear. It's like the size of a flip phone from the old days. It clips onto your belt buckle or whatever, and you wear it around with you all day long. It detects that you're up and living by a sense of motion. There's a gyroscope in the box that can get a sense for there's motion. And so it picks up an embedded signal in a radio station's transmission. And it recognizes that and how long the signals are being picked up, and it stores that information. When you get home, you go and you put that little unit in its little counter, and it sits there overnight while you sleep. So that's our approach for the audio, primarily for radio picking up, but they are doing some of this now for television too. Now the key thing here is the process for transferring that data from your home to the Nielsen Center is pretty much the same. Here's how it works. We'll look at it for television. Imagine there you are sitting in your green sofa, and you've got your foot up on that green ottoman, and you're watching television. What's happening is you've pressed that button, hopefully, and so it's recognizing what you're watching, and it's making note of it. At 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a telephone call or a transmission sent via the internet to Nielsen, and all the data are transferred at that point and dumped there. 7 o'clock in the morning, it begins to be processed. By noon, that information is already available on what was happening yesterday. Particularly for the television folks, that information is going out right away to the clients, whether it's advertisers or to networks or station groups or stations themselves. So that way, information is available, they can do the analysis. There's also a weekly report, because this information is good, but what happens if you watch a show a little bit later than the 3 o'clock in the morning? Maybe you watched a show and recorded another show, and you watched the other show the next day. Well, the weekly report will account for anything that you've watched. First it's live, and then 3 days, or live and 7 days. So your weekly reports will give people a sense for the extent to which you viewed that programming over the course of a week. So that's the process. It's very similar for the PPM as well. You don't have the same kind of sofa perhaps while you're listening, who knows, but it is still being sent over the phone lines or a cell phone call or a computer line through the internet and processed and made available the next day. So that's our overview of the way data are collected for this audience analysis. It's a range of ways and a couple of really important technical approaches: the local people meter, which is our primary television resource, and the portable people meter, which is our primary audio resource.